sorry I was delayed because as I do service individuals and because this is the open enrollment for Medicare and Obamacare, I got frantic calls from clients this morning and I couldn't get out.
Okay, we feel that one.
We weren't able to get the projector.
Yeah, the engineer, she's coming. She's coming? Joanna?
Otherwise,
Yeah.
I could try to use my projector and just project it over here, but
The likeness of the wall might not do it.
oh, because this is very visual. I'm visual myself, so to be able to convey a message, I like to use images or pictures, and so it would be much better if we use the projector.
Okay.
Oh, we were trying to get the projector so she can project on the screen. Oh, she should connect to this one.
So you may be wondering how did I get here from, actually I was born and raised in Nicaragua, Central America, so you might notice that my accent is not quite Chinese. If anything is, but it's a small one, I don't know if it's no, it's just a very small.
This is where I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. You gotta be teachers on
He knows what he's doing. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he does.
No, but then I can't change it. I got power.
I thought what you were bringing there was.
I'm sorry?
It's supposed to be projected. So-
Yep. I'm gonna hook up to another one.
No, but I could just use my computer.
Okay, but I may have to have your computer over here, that's the thing.
Oh. I could talk from down there too, okay.
And you'll take me,
All right, Daddy. Praise God for Yeah.
Doctor, you know something about the Holy Spirit?
Oh, man. All right. Perfect. Praise the Lord. Wow. Amen. Well, I was just giving you a little background about myself, but I'm being touched. I originally studied medicine.
yeah, there's a microphone right there.
Perfect.
Yes.
I was letting you know that I was born and raised in Nicaragua, Central America.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% Chinese, but I lost my parents when I was young, so literally my first first language is Spanish. I don't know if you may have heard me on the radio, but I speak on 2 Spanish radio stations, and they know me as Ling, la chinita que habla español. My name, the Chinese lady who speaks Spanish. And they know me in the Hispanic community without even knowing me personally. But the Lord led me to study medicine because I lost both my parents to cancer when I was very young. And I so much wanted to find a cure for that terrible disease. And God was good. I mean, being brought up in a very tiny little town in Nicaragua, I mean, you don't even see it on the map. Yet the Lord brought me first to the United States, and then I ended up studying medicine in Guatemala. So that's where the Universidad de San Carlos in Guatemala is, where I got my medical degree. And I also got a bachelor's at the University of Berkeley, California. And while I was studying medicine, I realized I could help many people with medicine, but I felt that by studying nutrition, which I found out that is the underlying cause of many, many diseases, I could help more people. And again, the Lord connected me with the director of this School of Nutrition at UConn, and so I got a scholarship there, and that's where I was able to get my PhD in nutrition. As I did that, I did study vitamin D and calcium, and that connected me with another doctor who was trying to find out other potential uses of vitamin D. Because some of you may just know it as a vitamin, but really vitamin D has many, many roles. It's a hormone, and it's something that recreates naturally in your bodies. But because where we live, lifestyles, the tone of our skin, some of us may not produce enough vitamin D. I mean, any of you are not taking vitamin D, you should ask your doctor and say, how come you haven't recommended I take vitamin D? Okay. How many of you are taking vitamin D? Okay, good. It is important because, of course, that will be possibly another topic that I could discuss with the congregation at some other time. But I did research looking at vitamin D and cancer because it has a connection, a very close connection. And I was able to discover a molecule that was 16 times more potent than some cancer medications. And of course, that got sold and patented, and it's out of my hands now. But again, the Lord has led me down this pathway so that I could help other individuals. And although I have retired from that, I'm always happy to be able to share the knowledge that the Lord has allowed me to have through, seminars like this. And thank you, Pastor, for inviting me. So, when I used to give nutritional counseling, people would say, well, how could I eat the things that you're telling me to? I would recommend, very natural ways of eating. I said, well, how could I do that? Or when, where do I get those foods? And if we look back at nature, you don't need to have a lot of knowledge to know how to eat healthy. I have that picture there of a plant because in my travels, I have a sister who used to live in Trinidad and Tobago. Anyone from Trinidad and Tobago? And she was able to go and talk to preschoolers, 3-4-year-old children at a preschool. Because even though Trinidad is a tropical country and they are having obesity problems, so she wanted me to share. And I went, how do you teach nutrition to 3-4-year-olds? Right? So I brought a plant, and I brought a bottle of water, and in Trinidad they have a little juice, they call it chubby. Alright? So I brought that. Anybody yeah, you have it. And so I brought both, and I asked the children, I said, what do I feed my plant? What did they say? Water. 3-4-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So then I said, what do you think would happen to that plant if I feed it the chubby? Dad. 3 and 4, out of the mouth of babes, right? They didn't know anything about nutrition, but by nature, they just knew that those two things didn't go together. Right? So this is just something, it's very basic. You don't have to get a PhD in nutrition to have a healthy lifestyle. And I know that the topic was healthy lifestyle, but there's so many different aspects to a healthy lifestyle. And because my background is nutrition, well, I'm going to focus on nutrition. So, again, this just goes to show that we just have to use, sorry to say it, common sense, as those children had, and the basic things that the Lord has given us to be able to live healthy. And I'm going to illustrate different groups throughout the world on what they eat to survive. And of course, we come down to the United States. So just to give you an idea, look at this family of 5 and the type of food that they would eat in a week. In essence, well, this is an old slide. But in those times, for them to eat for 1 week, it would cost them $1.23 by just buying the natural foods that they have available to them. This is a family of 4 adults and 5 children in South America. And there, for 1 week, they would spend about $32. And again, they're very basic foods that we get from the earth. So again, that's what we need to eat, right? The natural things that the Lord gives us.
Amen.
Unfortunately, as we have progressed, supposedly, this is a family in Mexico. Again, 2 adults and 3 children. It's okay because I can see it. Thank you. And there, for a week, they would spend close to $200. But look at what they're eating.
Yes.
Yeah? Could you see the difference from the previous slide? Okay. And actually, do you know that sodas are cheaper than water?
Wow. Yes.
They know the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why? Because they know that if they get you hooked on those things, you know, and again, of course, it's sweet, and sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Okay? And look at a family of 4. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So you can see here 2 adults and 2 teenagers, and they're spending, again, this slide is about 20 years old, but it still reflects what happens nowadays. Close to $350 a week for 4 people. And again, looking at the previous groups, what kind of food are they eating?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You tell me, what kind of food that is here?
A lot of junk.
A lot of sugar.
That's what I was trying to get to. Processed food.
Yes.
And so it's not the food that the Lord provides to us that is not healthy. Okay? It's basically what are we doing to those foods. Basically, it just shows how modernization affects food culture. And so, of course, you know, from going from family shared meals to, you know, eating out, and of course, from eating from the farms, we are eating a lot of industrialized and processed, highly processed foods. So that brings me to what is leading the leading cause of health problems here in the United States. Bottom line is what? What are we eating, right? What are we eating?
Yes.
And unfortunately, now I'm going to show you the impact that is having on our families and our children and the communities at large. So, in essence, if you have been reading the headlines, this is nothing new. I stopped teaching the nutrition 20 years ago, okay? And I graduated over 30 years ago from Yukon. This is something that I had been studying, long time ago, maybe before many of you were born. Yet the story is still the same. That unfortunately there's an obesity epidemic. And this article is not, a year old, 2022, just a little over a year ago. But still, the obesity epidemic continues to grow. And they're saying there 19 states have reached above 35%. What does that mean? In those states, 1 out of 3 people is obese. And so, basically, our lifestyle, as you could see from the previous slide that I showed you of the different ethnic groups, because of the foods that we're eating, we have moved away from the farm to, processed foods. And so, the effect is that we're having youth, meaning ages 2 to 19. And again, these are not too old, these statistics, but you can see that it's a very serious problem. It's close to 20%, meaning 1 out of 5 youth have obesity problems. And the adult population, 20 years or over, you could see that it's over 40%. And of course we can't divide people, but basically like 1 out of 2 people, that's the closest that we could get. 1 out of 2 people have obesity problems. And of course that leads to health problems. So,
Say that again. Of course, that leads to what?
health problems.
Yeah.
Health problems. And I'm going to show some slides as to how being overweight and obese are linked to some of these conditions. So this is not new. And I'm sorry that this slide got cut off there because this figure here on the right is a Newsweek magazine that was published in the year 2000. That was 23 years ago. And the problem about it, sad to say, is that these rates not only have they tripled since the mid-70s, but rather, what I want to highlight there is what populations are being affected most. Black and Latinos, it's unfortunately, that's the reality. So I'm glad that you are taking this approach by bringing education, because it has to start to those 3-4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Just opening their minds to what certain things can do to their bodies. Okay. So I'm just showing you how it's. Many people say, well, they go, oh, it's in my genes, or my parents were like this, and that's why I'm this way. It didn't use, that problem was not as prevalent in the 70s. This shows like from the 1980s, but like the previous slide said, in the 70s, that was not as serious as a problem as it is now. And you see the progression by the different, these are maps, the map of the United States, and you can see the different states that are being recognized as having obesity problems in their population by the different colors, okay? It wasn't like, because it wasn't a problem, they didn't really do many statistic studies then. But as it started to present itself, states started to pay more attention and take note as to how many people had that problem. And we could see that in 5 years' time, they could report that almost half or more than half of the states had individuals, and again, down below you can't see what the colors really mean, but pale blue meant that less than 10% of the population was obese. The darker blue was 10 to 14, and the, what do you call it, marine blue, is 15 to 19% of the population being obese, and this is just for the adults. And as the years progress, they started to add more colors because those number of individuals that were in those states that were 10 to 19% kept increasing and increasing, and so the tan color was 20 to 24% of the population. The orange is 25 to 29%, and then the rust color, I don't know if you could see, distinguish the color here in this bottom slide, it's over 30% of the adult population. Okay, and then you can see that's 2007. That's over 15 years ago, right? So this is a very serious problem. Now, this again is another illustration of the same thing, except the last statistics that they have is from 2021, from 2 years ago. And unfortunately, in 2011, the highest level of obesity was 29 to 35%. Here we got cut off, but it reads 36 to 40% of the population in those darker colored states are obese. So that's how, 10-year time difference. So, and you hear it all the time in the news, you read about it, there's a lot of campaigns going on, but why things continue to progress in the wrong direction? You tell me why. What do you think?
Marketing, I think they're putting it so much for us to gravitate towards it.
Unfortunately.
And making it more cheaper than.
Availability of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Exactly, availability, disparities in terms of cost and income.
And I think our culture, the American culture, was acceptable through the media, advertising, swayed people to accept this kind of lifestyle that is negative and destructive.
Absolutely. And then, of course, they also try to influence you to say, oh, it's in your genes, right? So it's acceptable. Or you can't do anything about it. You could do something about it. And, again, I commend Bishop Elliott for, doing this. Because I feel that if we educate our people, empower our people, by showing them the root cause problem as to why this problem exists, at least open your eyes and be able to give you the choice of saying, you know what, my family doesn't have to go this way.
And two, also, a lot of people eat for taste. So if you're going to use a lot of sugar, salt, all kinds of seasonings like that, they want their food to taste good. And if you're doing it the natural way, a lot of times you've got to adapt to that type of taste, because the flavor doesn't come through as well as sugar,
And
salt.
salt and fat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's all adaptation. Our ancestors didn't know sugar. I mean, they knew molasses and honey, but they didn't use what we're using nowadays. And then same with salt. You use herbs, and of course, even in the ancient times, even in the Bible, they talk about salt, right? It was a precious commodity. But it doesn't mean that you can't use it. It's how much. And that's again the idea about it. And unfortunately, our taste buds tend to adapt, just like anything else. As we increase the amount, we keep increasing the amount. We things that have less, we think that have no taste, and so we have to keep adding.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So in reality, that is the problem. And again, this just shows the percent of people who have body mass index, that's what BMI stands for, with body mass index over 30.
So going to my statement as to how obesity is related to health concerns, this is a slide, and I'm sorry it's not showing there, but the different color bars, is this blocking?
We can take that down.
Basically, the colored bars represent different conditions that are very common, seen commonly around. So the blue bar reflects diabetes, the orange bar, gallstones, green, high blood pressure, and red is arthritis. And then here you have
Take this out of the way. Yeah.
I don't know if some of you could see it.
Temporarily, would you take this down?
Oh yeah, thank you.
Great, good. Good. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So you can see here, this first set of bars represent individuals who are overweight. We have three different categories: overweight, obese, and extremely obese. And overweight is considered in individuals who have body mass index of 25 to close to 29.9. It's a way of measuring body composition. And obese are individuals who have body mass index of 30 to 34.9, and if their body mass index is over 35, they would be considered extremely obese. So you could see that diabetes is prevalent, of course, in overweight people, and so are the other conditions. But you could see that as their degree of obesity increases, you could see the number of cases of those conditions increases. And of course, with extreme obesity, that increases so many times more. So the link is there. You could clearly, you can't deny that there is that connection, between being overweight and these are just, four conditions, just to use them as an example. So what could we do about it?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you got people that are low income and poverty, and what you're telling us is absolutely true, and we believe you. How do you change the mindset of that person who feels that the only way they can afford to eat is they got to buy all of this cheap processed
Cheaper
food?
food, yeah.
Education. Like what I'm doing with you.
Because the food that we need to eat tends to be much more
Much higher,
expensive
yeah.
than the processed food. So the person in poverty is saying, doctor, I believe you. What do I do?
Okay. Remember that I showed you those pictures of, people in Chad and in South America and so on. They don't have processed food. They live off natural things.
Yes.
They actually cook and prepare their foods from scratch. And really, there's beans, a bag of 5 pounds of beans might cost what 1 or 2 cans of beans cost, and it goes a lot further. So we have to change your mentality in going back to basics, to cook and prepare our own foods. Now, even bread. Bread is not bad. It's just that processed breads have far more additives and, I mean, people in Guatemala, I can talk about Guatemala because I live in Guatemala. And they make their own tortillas from ground corn, and all you add is some water and, you know, they make their own tortillas. So you don't really need a lot of money to eat. Of course, it costs more to buy meat and other things down there, but in essence, we just have to go back to basics and try not to depend so much on processed foods. And we think that it's cheaper, but in reality, you know, just try it yourselves. You had a question.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that you either buy good food, now and remain healthy, or you buy cheap food and then you pay for it later in medical bills.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
absolutely true.
And I don't know if I have a slide related to that, but in essence, that's my point, you know, that we have to invest in our health, and either we invest on eating healthier, as Sister Jeanette is saying, now, or we pay later. And it's a lot costlier, because again, being in the Medicare insurance business, I know how much some of those medications actually cost. You know, so definitely, I wish our government would spend more time in teaching people to go back to basics. Because they spend a lot of money with these propaganda, you know, about obesity, But what are they doing to go to the grassroots, like we were, and teaching people about the basic ways to live a healthier life? And it has to start with what we eat or what we feed our bodies. And so this slide here goes to my point. Of the top 10 causes of death in the United States, the ones that are tan colored are related to nutrition. So if it's related to nutrition, what does that tell you?
Wow.
By eating healthier, we could actually change those statistics.
That's right.
What
Right.
about communities that have food deserts?
I'm sorry.
What about communities that have like food deserts where, like, you know, where I work in Western Manor, you know, the grocery store is
Or,
far and transportation.
well, that's where the government has to step in, but I'm just giving, you know, the basic information, you know, that, if we teach people to go back to basics, boil your own beans, you know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take that much more to prepare. You know, make your greens and things like that. And unfortunately, talking about its effect on cardiovascular health, since, you know, of course, the leading cause of death in this slide is heart disease, I'm going to focus a little on that, if it's okay. So going to cardiovascular health, this slide shows how our blood vessels, primarily the arteries,
Get clogged.
exactly, the way, I mean, it's supposed to, you know, like anything in life, it deteriorates with time, you know, as we age. So this is an image of the artery of a baby. You can see it's squeaky clean, like you're coming in a brand new house, right? Everything is squeaky clean.
Yeah.
But a doctor started to think, well, when does cardiovascular disease actually start? So he decided to do autopsies in children who died, you know, due to infections or accidents and so on. And he found that even in 5-year-old, this is the image of an artery of a 5-year-old, already started to show accumulation of cholesterol plaque in their arteries. And of course, as time progresses, you'd expect, you know, just like you're coming in your house, little by little, with going down the drain, you know, it gets clogged up. And so that's expected in the process of normal aging. But because of our lifestyle, going back to the topic of this presentation, we could actually accelerate that process of aging in our arteries. And you will see that the artery of this 25-year-old is almost like the one of that 50-year-old in the middle. And how many of you have heard of 40-year-olds, even 20-something-year-olds having heart attacks? Any of you have heard or experienced that or know of someone? Yeah. So what I'm saying is not only shown in these pictures, but you have experienced it yourself. So you can see that the artery of this 50-year-old, it looks even worse than this 75-year-old here at the end. You know, so again, if we change our lifestyle, we would change the outlook
Yes.
of what our arteries inside our body looks like. Okay, and I'm testimony to that. You know, many of you may not. I'm actually in the group that is receiving Medicare right now, just to give you an idea, and more. So, but I'm sorry, yeah, I am. 5 years past that, so just to give you an idea. So definitely, how you treat your body, the temple of the Holy Spirit, could make a difference in your life and the impact that you have in the lives of your loved ones. Because when mommy is sick, what happens to the rest of the family?
That's right.
Right? Or if the father is not there anymore, what's going to happen to that family? You know. So definitely, how you treat your body. I mean, you know, you're young. So as you raise your families, if you have what I'm telling you now in your mind, and just make conscientious decisions as to what you do or what you buy, will make a difference in your family. Okay? So, this is the image of a heart. Okay? This is the heart. And enlarged there is this artery that has been blocked. You know, and then you can see here where the cholesterol plaque has accumulated, and of course no more blood is flowing in through that artery. And so the area that is supposed to feed dies off, and that's where the person will get a heart attack. Interestingly, the heart, even though the heart is pumping blood, it gets its own blood supply from the outside. So that's why, you know, those arteries are on the outside. And that's a good thing too, because then doctors could easily operate on those bypass surgeries that you hear about. And many times when they do that, either a bypass surgery, what they do is they take a vein from your extremities here, and then they just connect one end to the upper part of that blockage, and then connect it to the lower part of the blockage to make the blood flow, and that's bypassing the blockage. That's what they call bypass surgery. Yeah. Other times they use another technology where they put in a stent. Anyone heard of someone getting a stent, right? Basically, they put a little tube just to push or open up that space there, so blood would continue to flow through. That's what a stent does. But of course, they could only do so much, and many times they don't put in a stent until there's 80% blockage. You know, at that time you would just easily get a heart attack. Okay, so again, we don't need to get to this point if we could prevent it by having a healthier lifestyle. Okay, this is the effect of cardiovascular disease in the brain. Because, you know, we hear a lot about strokes. A stroke is like a heart attack, except it's happening in the brain, where for some reason, one of the veins that go into the brain gets clogged, and depending where that artery, one of the arteries gets clogged, and depending where that artery feeds, if that part of the brain doesn't get its food and oxygen supply from that artery, it's going to die out. And so, depending on where that damage occurs, that's where the person presents the symptoms that you often see when someone has a stroke. More frequently, it affects speech,
Yeah.
and if it's more massive, it could cause paralysis of half of the body. I think God was so wise.
Yeah.
Our brains are made up of two halves. And the right half of the brain controls the left side, and the left side of the brain controls the right side. So that's why many times when you see a person that has paralysis, if you see that they have paralysis on the left side, you say, oh, he had a stroke on the right side of the brain. Yeah. But thankfully, because the brain is so large and has many sources of blood, we continue to live. So it's not the leading cause of death. With the heart, when you have one, and and the leading cause of death, but the brain, we tend to survive more. So 88% of all strokes are ischemic. Ischemic meaning that no more blood with oxygen is getting to that part of the brain. The other percentage is hemorrhagic stroke. And when I was talking about having different arteries going to the brain, we have arteries going on the right side and on the left side. So, we get more sources of blood flowing to the brain. So sometimes a hemorrhagic stroke also happens, and those tend to be fatal. And most frequently, it's because of high blood pressure. So that's why you need to keep control or an eye on your blood pressure, because just like a balloon, if it fills up, right, and if you keep adding blood or pressure to it, what's going to happen to it?
Burst.
It'll pop.
Yeah.
Same thing happens with our arteries in our brain. It happens many places. Sometimes we see it in our eyes, right? Have you ever seen people have a red eye? Many times it's because a little blood vessel just bursts, But in the brain, because it's surrounded by a solid construction, a bone, there's no way for that inflammation, for all that extra fluid to go. And so that compresses and causes pressure on the brain. And, the person dies because of that. So this tends to be deadlier. Okay, so many people don't, so that's why it's important. Anyone who has high blood pressure, especially if it's over the 200s, to try to bring it down as fast as possible, bring it to the emergency, whatever, to prevent something like this from happening.
I have a question. What do you say to the person that feels like it's too late to change now? Meaning, like, I've been doing this for 50 plus years, and it's going to take me 50 years to reverse.
Any step that you take in the, prevent is valid. You can't, I don't have the correct words probably to say it, but definitely you need to do something. And again, just changing that mentality that I'm too far gone. That's why I actually studied nutrition, because I believe in prevention. And maybe that person may be too far gone, but it may be that whatever they decide to do, it would help to prevent in their families. Set the example. I lost both my parents to cancer, and believe me, I don't want that to happen to anyone. It happened when I was young, so that's why I'm so passionate about prevention. If I could prevent, this is just cardiovascular disease. Cancer is a whole other topic, but definitely there are things that we could do to prevent. And so my question was, how did we get to these conditions?
Doc,
Yes.
I'm enjoying you.
Me too.
Y'all enjoying this?
So,
I want to keep you going,
okay.
but I might have to break up my financial one if I let you keep going.
Okay, well,
But I will say this to you, we would love for you to come back.
come some other time.
Yes,
and,
well, we got another meeting in got another meeting, and we always have at least something on holistic approach. So if you don't mind coming back, or they may do something before then, where they want you to come anyway. Because right now, to me, what you're discussing
It's so important.
is vitally important.
Yes, yes.
It is absolutely important. So I could carry you on for the next 2 hours, really.
Yes.
But further than that, I won't get to the other things. So, listen, so I'm gonna have to ask, if you all got questions, right now, if you ask Dr. Caldera,
Maybe, yeah.
if you have questions, I'm gonna allow now for questions for you to ask so she can answer you, and then I have to move on into the financial one.
Okay, perfect.
All right, go right ahead, they got you.
Yes.
Doctor, how do you feel about statins to control cholesterol? Are you for them or against them?
Again, going back to the way the Lord made us. Without cholesterol, we would die, just to put it that way. Our liver produces about 3,000 milligrams of cholesterol every day, because all our cells in our body need cholesterol. The problem is going back again to what I'm talking about, nutrition. Our lifestyle makes our cholesterol to go up, and so we have to take statins. But many times it could be controlled with diet, healthy diet, and exercise. So there's my answer. And many of those statins cause more damage than good.
Doc, could you explain what statins are, so everybody
Okay,
knows?
so statins are some drugs that are given to people who have high cholesterol levels to supposedly bring down your cholesterol levels. Okay. But again, if you could do it in the most natural way, you could avoid it. Because many of these statins actually end up harming muscles. And the heart is a muscle as well. And some people end up with aches and pains because of the statins. Someone had a
Yeah, I have a question. All right, so healthy eating would keep our kidneys, our liver, all that in good condition, right?
everything. Again, it's just like that plant. It only needs water to feed the whole plant, right? Our body just needs healthier food to be healthy overall.
I was just gonna, no, I was just gonna say that my brother went to the doctor and he was diagnosed with high cholesterol and pre-diabetic. He went back in 3 months. He changed his whole diet, lost 60 pounds just from healthy eating. He went back to the doctor, and they couldn't believe that in just 3 months. He lost, it took like 6 months, but he lost 60 pounds.
It's doable. It's doable. Again, your question, young man, it's doable. It's
Right.
never too late.
Good question.
What is the correlation? I heard you say vitamin D because I'm in relations to cancer.
They did some studies looking at the incidence of cancer in people that live, like from the equator, and then as they move further away from the equator, the sun exposure, the certain type of wavelength of the sunlight, it decreases. And they found that the people who had less vitamin D production through their skin, because they were less exposed to these natural rays from the sun, had higher incidence of cancer. So there's a strong correlation with that.
Well, how do you know which vitamins are good ones? There's so many like out there.
Well, in reality, vitamins are good. Who manufactures them? That's another story. Yeah. So again, vitamins are natural substances that God created to keep our body running properly. But some companies produce better quality than others.
I recently went to the doctors and they told me that my levels were good. The only thing that was low was vitamin D. So vitamin D. Yeah, was the lowest. That was the only thing that was, I guess, like, hey, you need to work on that. So I did go buy vitamin D pills, I've got, I think it's like 5,000 milligrams. Is that okay to take?
Yeah, they're international, yes, and actually 5,000 is what is recommended, for the
Right.
general population on a regular basis. In the winter time, if you could double it, would be great, because
Okay.
we have less sun exposure during the winter time, so of course you don't produce the natural vitamin D that we should.
Okay.
So, D3 is the one you would
That's the natural one, that's
suggest,
the one that,
correct? Yep,
you know.
D3.
So I should
yeah.
get D3?
D3.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Any natural ways to prevent migraines or decrease migraines?
There are many causes of migraine, so it's kind of hard, but I would start by just cleansing. Sometimes there's toxins in your body. I've helped a lot of people just by improving their cardiovascular health, because migraines are triggered by some kind of vascular trigger. And within a week of taking a particular supplement, their migraines stopped. And that one of those people was my husband, so I have my own testimony there. But yes, migraines could be prevented. And he hasn't had migraines in a long time. So is his sister and many other people that I have helped. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.